Okay, boys and girls, hello again. We're going to move on with the chapter book. The next chapter is called Philadelphia. That happens to be in Pennsylvania. Lewis worked all the last week of September for the Swan Boatman in Boston. He was a great success and was becoming famous. On Saturday, the boatman paid him $100 in cash, which Lewis placed carefully in his money bag. The boatman, after paying the first night's bill at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, decided to let Lewis sleep on the lake instead of in the hotel, and this made Lewis much happier. He slept with the ducks and the geese on the lake, floating gracefully on the surface. Lewis took good care of the Trumpet. He kept it polished, and once a week he cleaned it out. Well, you know that from your recorders. He learned new songs whenever he could by listening to people's radios and by attending concerts. He was very good at remembering music he had heard. He was really a natural-born musician, or in his case, a natural-hatched musician. One song he liked was Beautiful Dreamer, Wake On To Me. Whenever he played it, he thought of Serena, and always when he finished it, the passengers on the Swan boat clapped loudly and cheered. Lewis liked applause. It made him feel lighthearted and happy. Sometimes at the end of the afternoon, Lewis played Now the Day Is Over. He made it sound sweet and sad. One afternoon, when he was leading the last trip of the day, he played the Cradle Song by Brahms. The passengers loved it. A boy in the front seat of the boat pulled an air rifle from under his jacket and began shooting BB shots at Lewis's trumpet. Whenever a shot hit the horn, it made a pinging sound, so the Cradle Song sounded a little bit different. The children on the boat roared with laughter when they heard this, but the grown-up passengers were angry. One of them seized the little BB gun from the boy. Another went home that night and wrote a letter to the Boston Globe urging that people control their children. On some afternoons at the end of the day, people gathered on the shores of the lake to listen while Lewis played. It was a peaceful, serene time. The Swan boat had never enjoyed such popularity or made so much money. But Lewis knew that the boats would not run all winter. In a few days, the boats would be hauled out for the season to wait quietly for the arrival of spring. One day, when Lewis was waiting for the boat to take its passengers aboard, a Western Union messenger boy appeared on a bicycle. "I have a telegram for the Swan," he said. The boatman seemed surprised, but he took the telegram and handed it to Lewis, who opened it promptly. It was from a man in Philadelphia, and the message read, "Can offer you $500 a week for nightclub spot, 10-week engagement. Please reply." Lewis did some quick figuring. $500 a week for 10 weeks. Can you do the multiplication, boys and girls? That was $5,000. $5,000 would easily pay his father's debt to the music store. So he took his slate and wrote back, "Offer accepted. Arrive tomorrow. Meet me at Bird Lake in the zoo. Splashdown will be at 4:52 p.m. Hope this will be convenient time for you." Lewis showed the message to the Western Union boy, who copied it onto a telegraph blank. "Send it collect," wrote Lewis. The messenger nodded and rowed away. Lewis stepped back into the water. The boat's lines were cast off, and Lewis led the way. He knew it was his last appearance with the Swan boat, and he felt a little sad. It was a warm, quiet Sunday afternoon, the last Sunday in September. Lewis played all his favorite tunes: Lazy River, Beautiful Dreamer, Oh, Ever in the Greening Spring, Now the Day Is Over, and then, as the boat neared the dock, he raised his trumpet and blew taps. Lewis had no trouble finding Philadelphia. Almost anybody can find Philadelphia who tries. Lewis simply rose into the air with all his things around his neck, and when he was about 1,000 feet high, he followed the railroad tracks to Providence, New London, New Haven, Bridgeport, Stamford, Coscoe, Greenwich, Port Chester, Rye, Mamaroneck, New Rochelle, Pelham, Mount Vernon, and the Bronx. When he saw the Empire State Building, he veered off to the right, crossed the Hudson River, and followed the railroad tracks to Newark and Trenton and pointed south. At 4:30, he reached the Schuylkill River. Just beyond, he spied the Philadelphia Zoo. Bird Lake looked very attractive from the air. It was crowded with waterfowl of all kinds, ducks and geese mostly. Lewis thought he also saw 2 or 3 swans. He circled, picked an open spot, and exactly at 4:52, he splashed down. His trumpet banged against his slate knocked against his metal rapped against his chalk pencil, and his chalk pencil on its string wound itself around his money bag. And all in all, the splashdown caused quite a commotion. The ducks and geese were not expecting anything like this to happen. All of a sudden, having a big white trumpeter swan dropping down out of the sky, loaded with lots of things around his neck. Louis paid no attention to the other birds. He had a date to keep. He saw a man leaning out on the railing in front of the birdhouse. The man was dressed in a purple suit and wore a hat. His face looked shrewd and wise, as though he knew a great many things, many of them not worth knowing. That must be Abe Lucky Lucas, thought Louis. He swam quickly over. Cuckoo, he said through his trumpet. My pleasure, replied Mr. Lucas. You are right on time. The splashdown was sensational. Welcome to the Philadelphia Zoo, which crawls with rare animals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish, including sharks, rays, and other fish-like vertebrates. Watch out for wild animals. This place is replete with them. Oops, I think the page with them. And it's making no sense. So there has to be another page here. I'm not sure. My hands are clean, so okay. He's going to list the animals. Snakes, zebras, monkeys, elephants, lions, tigers, wolves, fox, bear, hippos, rhinos, woodchucks, skunks, hawks, owls. I seldom come here. My work confines me to the throbbing heart of the city among the many changes. I am under great pressure from the work. How was your trip from Boston? Smooth, wrote Louis on his slate. I made good time. What about you? A happy question, replied Mr. Lucas. The job will start on October 15th. The contract has been finalized. Your place of employment is a nightclub of great renown across the river, a place of high fashion and low prices, a jumpy joint. You will be called upon to make appearances each evening except Sunday and play your trumpet for the happy customers. Once in a while you can join a jazz group. Louis the Swan on trumpet. The pay is very good. My spirits are lifted by thinking about the pay. Wealth and happiness are around the corner for Louis the Swan and Lucky Lucas the Great of Heart. My agent's fee is 10%, a mere bagatelle. How do I get to the nightclub? Asked Louis. In a taxi, replied Mr. Lucas. Be the north entrance of the zoo, Girard Avenue and 34th Street at 9 o'clock on the evening of October 15th, a night that will live forever. A cab will await your pleasure and will transport you to the club. The driver is a friend of mine. He, too, is under pressure from his work. What's going to pay for the cab? Asked Louis on his slate. Well, I'm going to pay for the cab, Mr. Lucas said. Lucky Louis, the generous of heart, pays for the cab for Louis the Swan. And by the way, I see that you are wearing a money bag and that it is plump with moolah. I suggest from the kindness of my great heart that you turn this money bag over to me for safekeeping during your stay in Philadelphia, a place of many thieves and pickpockets. Would you turn it over? Let's see. No, thank you, wrote Louis. I'll keep the money bag to myself. Very well, said Mr. Lucas, and now there is one other small matter I must bring to your attention. Most of the birds that swim on this luxury lagoon have undergone surgery. Undergone surgery. Candor compels me to tell you that the tip of one wing is usually removed by the management. Do you know why the tip of the wing would be removed? Think about it. A painless operation popular with zoos the world over. Pinioned is the word for it. I believe it detains the water birds and prevents them from leaving the narrow confines of this public park and rising into the air because when one wing is shorter than the other, the balance of the bird is upset. His attempt to take off would be crowned with failure. In short, he can't fly. Sensing in advance the revolution you would feel toward having the tip of one of your powerful wings removed, I approached the man in charge of birds and I laid before him a proposition. He has agreed not to clip your wing. It is arranged. He is the man of honor. Your freedom of movement is assured. You will not be pinioned, but in return for this so great favor on the part of management of the Philadelphia Zoo, you are to give a free concert here at the lake every Sunday afternoon for the people of Philadelphia. So, they're making a deal. Louis would not be pinioned so that he can fly off. The only thing he has to do is give a concert one Sunday, each Sunday. Is it a deal? Yes, wrote Lewis. We'll give you Sunday concerts. Good, said Mr. Lucas. Farewell for the nounce. Be at the north entrance at 9, October 15th. A cab will await you. Play well, sweet Swan. You will be the finest thing that has happened in Philadelphia since the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Lewis didn't understand this, but he nodded goodbye to Mr. Lucas and swam off toward the island in the center of the lake. Then he stepped ashore, straightened his things, preened his feathers, and rested. He was not sure he was going to like his new job. He was not sure he liked Mr. Lucas. But he needed money badly, and when you need money, you are willing to put up with anything that you must. One good thing about the whole business was the zoo itself. It seemed like an extremely nice place, in spite of what he had heard about having your wings clipped. Lewis had no intention of ever having his wing clipped. I'll sock anybody who tries that on me, he said to himself. He was pleased to see so many other water birds. There were many kinds of ducks and geese. In the distance, he saw 3 trumpeter swans. They were old residents of the lake. Their names were Curiosity, Felicity, and Apathy. Lewis decided he would wait a day or two before making their acquaintances. Bird Lake has a fence around it. When the night came for him to start work, Lewis polished his trumpet, put on all his things, flew over the fence, and landed at the north entrance. He was then promptly taken at 9 by the taxicab that was awaiting him, that Mr. Lucas had promised him. Lewis got in and was driven away to his new job. And that is the end of that chapter. I don't know, I think Lewis was not actually trusting Mr. Lucas, so he seemed like a very sly character, I think. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and the next chapter is called Serena, so we'll see how that chapter takes us. Serena. What are you thinking, boys and girls? Think about that I wonder question.